let's just think about godparents for a moment. Do you have godparents? Or maybe you are one yourself. What does that whole relationship mean to you, really? Is it, just about birthday gifts or maybe a kind of backup plan, or is there something, well, deeper going on?
Yeah, that personal angle, that's usually where people start, isn't it? But it gets really interesting when you sort of zoom out. For this quick deep dive, we've actually pulled together quite a few sources. We're talking historical studies, church records, cultural observations, even online chats, really trying to unpack the surprisingly varied story of godparenthood.
And it is surprising. We really wanted to figure out, okay, where did this role even begin? How has it shifted and, changed over the centuries, and how incredibly different it can look depending on where you are in the world today. So our mission really is just to pull out the most interesting bits from all this research and lay it out for you.
Right, so let's go way back. Our sources, they pretty clearly point towards the early Christian church, but maybe not how you'd expect. It wasn't initially focused on babies. Picture this instead. All right. Adult converts, right? People joining the faith who needed sponsors. They needed someone who can basically vouch for them, say yes, they're sincere, especially when things were, frankly, dangerous, and guide them, teach them about the faith.
Okay. So less like substitute parents and more like faith guides or mentors.
Exactly.
And I saw this term susceptor that pops up. Sounds kind of formal.
It does. It comes from Roman custom, meaning one who receives, basically someone who takes charge of a child in some way. Early Christians sort of adapted that concept for the person who, received the newly baptized person into the faith community.
Got it. And were there similar things before Christianity, like in other cultures?
Well, yes and no. You definitely find supportive roles in pre-Christian times. Think Roman naming ceremonies, or even in the Jewish bris ceremony, there's the sandik who holds the baby. But the sources really stress that none of these were quite the same as this permanent spiritual bond that started developing specifically within Christianity.
Okay, so it starts out very spiritual, very practical even, and then it seems like it gets way more complicated, socially speaking.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
By medieval times, this idea of spiritual kinship, the bond created through baptism, became incredibly powerful. So powerful, in fact, that it could actually legally stop families from marrying each other.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So it wasn't just a religious thing anymore?
Not at all. It was deeply woven into the whole social fabric.
And then you see shifts, right, like in 19th century Bohemia?
Right. The sources there, looking at parish records, show this fascinating pattern. People started choosing godparents more and more from within their existing extended family, uncles, aunts, that sort of thing. Instead of using it to build connections outside the family, like they might have before, it became about reinforcing the ties you already had. That's a really interesting shift in purpose you can see right there in the data.
That is interesting. And then for just pure politics, Venice, 16th century Venice sounds kind of wild.
Oh, it was. Our sources are pretty clear. The ruling class, the patricians, were totally using spiritual kinship, becoming godparents, to build alliances, get votes, basically shore up their power. It got so out of hand, apparently, that the government actually stepped in and tried to limit how many godchildren these powerful guys could have, just to stop the political games.
Okay, that's intense. Then the Protestant Reformation happens. That must have shaken things up.
Predictably, yes. It challenged a lot. Reformers, like Luther, for instance, he kept infant baptism and the idea of godparents. But crucially, he rejected all those strict medieval rules about marriage based on spiritual ties. He said, no, that's not the point. For him, the focus went right back to the godparent's job, making sure the child was actually taught the Christian faith.
Okay, but not everyone agreed with Luther, right? Weren't there more radical reformers?
Definitely. You had groups like the Anabaptists. They rejected infant baptism altogether. And, well, if you don't have infant baptism, you don't really need godparents for it, do you?
Makes sense.
It just shows how tightly bound the role was to that specific ritual. And even later, you had, like, English Puritans trying to abolish godparents, arguing there was no basis in the Bible, but the custom was just so, I guess, embedded by then.
Right.
It kind of stuck around, sometimes more informally.
Right. Which brings us sort of up to today, and it seems like now the role is just all over the place, a real mix.
A complete kaleidoscope, yeah.
Yeah.
You still have churches, like the Catholic and Orthodox traditions, that emphasize the religious duty. They have quite specific requirements for who can be a sponsor. But how that plays out in people's actual lives, it varies hugely.
Absolutely. From what we found, I mean, people describe godparents as everything from being really generous gift givers to just being sort of automatic extended family members, mentors, or sometimes just people the parents really admired and wanted to honor. And the amount of contact, that's all over the map too. Some are super involved, others are, more like distant figures.
And the language itself shows this variety, too, like cum in some Balkan cultures. That can mean both godfather and the best man at a wedding. Or in Dutch, you have pidoom and pietont, which literally means god uncle and god aunt. And you even see similar supportive roles outside Christian traditions, like in Santeria or going back to the Jewish bris ceremony.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Maybe underneath all the specific labels and traditions, there's just this basic human need or impulse to build extra support systems for kids, beyond just the parents. The idea keeps adapting, whether it's super formal and spiritual or maybe more secular, like a guide parent just focused on mentorship and care.
Yeah, what really jumps out after digging into all these different sources is seeing how this role, which started with such a specific religious function, has just constantly adapted. Sometimes people used it for social climbing, sometimes it survived despite attempts to get rid of it, and now it's this really complex, very personal kind of bond. It does make you wonder, in our world today, what kind of support beyond the immediate family really helps a child thrive the most.
This has been a quick overview. If you want to know more, check out our full episode on Study Hall wherever you get your podcasts.
That's your quick glimpse into today's full episode. If you want the full breakdown, the deep dive, and all the context we couldn't fit here, head over to the full episode of Study Hall, available now wherever you get your podcasts.
And while you're there, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening, and as always, stay curious.